Menlo Park, New Jersey. On this site, nearly 100 years ago, Thomas Alva Edison began his work of service for the world to illumine the path of progress and lighten labor for all mankind. Thomas Edison was present at the dedication of this monument in 1925. He was called the Jersey Columbus, the Wizard of Menlo Park. His country awarded him a special Congressional Medal of Honor with a citation that read quite simply, "This democratic, kindly, modest man has bestowed on the human race blessings instead of bondage, service instead of serfdom, construction instead of conquest." But beyond the monuments and the medals, there was a man known only to those with whom he worked and lived. These earnest, dedicated men called him neither wizard nor Columbus. They called him, from the time he was in his 20s, the old man. Why? It could have been a mild mockery of his endless boyish enthusiasm. Or it could have been because from the age of 12 he had been deaf. It may have been that the phrase, "the old man," at once paid tribute to his superior genius, yet held within it the resonance of affection and respect. The answer lies, perhaps, in the thoughts and feelings of those who knew him and shared his labors. Or more likely, the answer lies in the thoughts and feelings of the old man himself. Fast-moving modern-day transportation provide the foreground for the Edison Tower at Menlo Park. Solitary against the New Jersey sky, it stands as a symbol of the forceful, forward-moving results of Thomas Edison's genius. It was here from 1876 to 1886 that he perfected many devices known and daily utilized throughout the world. Most notably, the phonograph and the first practical incandescent lamp. When the young inventor first came to Menlo Park, there were a few buildings in an open pasture. In a letter to a friend, Edison wrote, "It's 4 miles from Rahway, the prettiest spot in New Jersey. We'll show you around and go strawberrying." He didn't do much strawberrying, however. Instead, he created the first industrial research laboratory in America and gathered around him a group of skilled and dedicated workers. "Edison made your work interesting," one of them said. "He made me feel I was making something with him. I wasn't just a workman." Edison was indistinguishable from his men. It was his genius that separated him from the others, yet at the same time joined them all together in a series of achievements that reached its climax in October 1879. Years later, the old man remembered the event.
Before starting experiments of the incandescent electric light system, many memorandums were drawn up as to the general system. If it was to be successful, all the units must be worked in multiple hours. This necessitated the creation of a lamp of very high resistance. On October 21st, 1871, numerous experiments resulted in the production of a small unit map of comparatively enormous resistance. But being under conditions of great stability after the result, I knew the problem approached commercial solution.
By 1882, he was able to say, "I have accomplished all that I promised." But the wooden sheds of Menlo Park could no longer contain the expanding inventiveness of Edison's restless mind. A new site was chosen, West Orange, New Jersey. Here, the activities Edison enjoyed with his men could be developed to a degree never achieved before. For the next 44 years, Edison and his carefully chosen associates pursued their goal of inventing and developing things that every man, woman, and child in the world wanted. The machine shop still stands, a symbol of Edison's endless energy. The now outdated machines can still churn and whir in the West Orange compound, as they did in the days when it was one of the wonders of the industrial world. "We can build anything from a lady's watch to a locomotive," Edison said. The old chemical lab contained over 8,000 samples of everything to experiment with. Here, Edison could exercise an earlier motto: you come across something you don't thoroughly understand, don't rest until you run it down. Edison reported that he had ordered everything from an elephant's hide to the eyeballs of a U.S. senator, and he could also practice his particular brand of genius, which he defined as 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. It was also at West Orange that he could return to the improvement of an earlier neglected invention, the one which had earned him the title of Wizard of Menlo Park, the phonograph. Years before, while working on a telegraph repeater, he designed a little machine using a cylinder provided with grooves around the surface. Over this was to be placed tinfoil, which was to receive and record the movements of a diaphragm. Edison handed one of his workmen a sketch of the model, asking him to build it as specified. "What's its purpose?" the workman asked. "It must talk," Edison replied, and the man thought this absurd. But Edison had long been accustomed to ridicule, friendly and otherwise. When the machine was built, it talked. The great and the near great came to the wood-paneled room in West Orange to meet the wizard and record for him. Helen Davies was one of the popular singers of the day. The great Russian pianist and composer, Sergei Rachmaninoff, came to play for Edison. Soon they were friends. But the attention of the world's great never diverted Edison from further experiment and development. Row upon row of discarded horns are mute testimony to Edison's unceasing pursuit of sound, a deaf man's gift to the world. the joyous sound and rhythms reached out from the music halls into the home. Popular singers had audiences in the millions. Entertainment that could have been only an annual event now became part of everyday life. But Thomas Edison envisioned a wider potential for his invention. He wanted phonographic books for the blind, dictation without the need of a stenographer, the preservation of speeches by the country's great men, and an aid in the common process of learning something as routine as spelling. The old man had begun it all. In his later years, he recalled its beginning with these simple words.
The first words I spoke in the original phonograph, a little piece of practical poetry. Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go.
The phonograph found its way to the home and heart of many. The phonograph, however, was not Edison's final attempt to capture human activity for posterity. Returning from the Paris Exposition of 1889, he went to a darkened room to observe the fruits of another experiment. On the wall was an image of one of his working men saying, "Good morning, Mr. Edison. Glad to see you back." Movies had been developed, and they were not silent, but talking. As always, Edison's men contributed to the experiment in whatever way necessary. "It will do for the eye what the phonograph does for the ear," Edison said of his newest achievement. Yet for all his vision, Edison failed to apply for a European patent. So little expectation did he have for his kinetoscope that he felt it didn't merit the $150 patent fee required. On this occasion, he had failed to gauge the immense potential of his own work. But not for long. The West Orange compound soon welcomed a strange-looking box-like building. It was quickly dubbed the Black Maria because it resembled an old-fashioned police wagon. This first motion picture studio drew performing artists from all walks of life. Among the early performers was Gentleman Jim Corbett, pugilistic idol of America, who provided a realistic exhibition of his art. Unknown heavyweight Peter Courtney received a small fee for his courage in facing Corbett. The original Little Egypt preserved on film the belly dance she won fame with at the Chicago World's Fair, with Thomas Edison behind the camera. Like the phonograph before it, the motion picture moved out of the Edison laboratory and into the world, into the daily lives of ordinary people. Vaudeville, with its endless variety of performers, found a new medium. Film held forever in motion a fragile dance of billowing veils. Intricate and amazing skills of the resilient Latina, the contortionist, were captured on the screen. And the one and only Sandow, the strongman. But Edison saw other possibilities for his invention. It could preserve its own time for future generations. Edison himself took his newly developed camera in hand and photographed the ordinary people in their ordinary activities, capturing forever a day long gone. The excitement of the turn of the century was preserved, reflecting a time when the nation was expanding in all directions. And the fashions at the Easter parade would now be seen without going to Fifth Avenue. Another miracle of the age was captured by Edison's camera. The subway was open. But the sights and sounds of the ordinary world never claimed the inventor for long. For all his enjoyment of working with his men, solitude, too, was a necessary companion. The library at the West Orange Laboratory contained over 10,000 books that Edison scoured in an attempt to expand and develop his mind. "I use my body to carry my brain around," Edison said. If work was an obsession with him, so was learning. He had become a legend in his time. But this particular legend had little time to dress for the part. Nor did legend protect him from disappointment and disaster. Once after an experiment had ended in a $250,000 failure, he could only say, "Well, it's all gone, but we had a hell of a good time spending it." He explained his attitude toward money and work in one characteristically brief sentence: "I always invent to obtain money to go on inventing." Another disaster hit closer to home. On a December night in 1914, the lab that stored nitrate film caught fire. The flames quickly spread. Edison, watching with his son Charles, turned to the boy and said, "Where's your mother? Get her over here and her friends too. They'll never see a fire like this again." Before the final flames had died, Edison had begun to build again. Build, that is, with the help of friends. Henry Ford, one of Edison's closest friends, made an immediate loan for reconstruction. Industry was not the only level on which the old man could enjoy his association with Henry Ford. Ford, Harvey Firestone, and poet-naturalist John Burroughs took long camping trips together. A curious quartet, harmonized by a shared appreciation of the natural, with the instinct for competition never completely silenced. Burroughs would later write, "It is a great pleasure to see Edison relax so easily, sleeping in his clothes like a baby." Yet for Edison, friendship could hardly satisfy the deeper yearnings of the human heart. After the death of his first wife, Edison had left his home in Menlo Park, never to return. But as always with Edison, adversity was an obstacle to be overcome. An inspiration for this particular renewal was a young music student from Ohio, Mina Miller. Edison wrote in his vacation diary, "Got to thinking about Mina and came near being run over by a streetcar." The groom later described the courtship. "I taught the lady of my heart the Morse code. I asked her thus, in Morse code, if she would marry me." And the almost 50 years that remained in his life were spent with the lady of his heart. When Edison moved part of his work to Florida, continuing an 8-year search for a plant that would yield rubber, Mrs. Edison was there.
Did you put out the seeds in the birds before?
Yes.
Well, I didn't see any there.
Well, it's there.
What?
Oh, there.
Where'd you put it?
Right out the same old place there.
Bye.
Goodbye. Is that right?
Morning, Mr. Edison. Morning, Billy. Did Hand get in last night?
Yes, he got in all
What
right.
time?
Well, it was about 9:30.
Edison ransacked the world in his search, testing 17,000 different plant specimens.
Mr. Edison, I show you one of the mangrove samples which we have received. Will you test it, please? This is made with bedroll only, no acetone.
Very good, very good.
As Mrs. Edison put it, everything turned to rubber in the family. We talked rubber, thought rubber, dreamed rubber.
That tin pot for the rolls to put in the varnish on the paper. I'm going to make that out of heavy tin and a 1-inch roll. That ought to be heavy enough.
All right, stop. The head is kind of thin.
Tin, yes.
At the end of his explorations, Edison discovered that rubber could be extracted from the common goldenrod, and he celebrated his discovery by growing one 12 feet high. But already a European concern had learned how to make synthetic rubber not from plants, but from coal and petroleum. And to most people, his final experiment was only a failure. But not to Edison. At the age of 82, assuring the world that a better solution to the rubber supply problem was at hand, he said, "We're just beginning."
What kind of luck did you have today?
Oh, fine.
That's good.
Now at a great age, Edison, addressing a group of scholarship students, could only repeat the central theme of his life.
It gives me very real pleasure to welcome you 49 young men from each state in the Union and the District of Columbia. I congratulate you all for having earned the right to compete to the final examination here. But let me say this to all of you. Do not count too heavily on your mental attainments. They are necessary to success. But remember always there is no substitute for hard work.
But even for an Edison, now indeed the old man, the years of hard work had to come to an end. The body that carried his brain around became too exhausted to bear the burden. Edison began spending more and more time at Glenmont, the West Orange mansion to which he had brought his bride almost half a century earlier. Holidays were as special to Edison as to any man. Difficult as it was to put work aside, he would revel with his family in the spirit of the day. Upstairs, the living room library was a favorite family room where Edison could study or play with the children. It was just down the hall in the master bedroom on an autumn night in 1931 that the end finally came. Edison's final words, spoken as he looked out toward the Jersey landscape, were, "It's very beautiful over there." At 3:24 in the morning, those gathered on the broad lawn down from the house saw the dreaded but expected signal. The lights in the upstairs room were turned on, full blaze. Edison was dead. The incredible adventure, begun so many years before, an adventure that had taken Edison from his boyhood in Ohio to an adolescence in Michigan, and finally to New Jersey, had come to a close. As for his epitaph, Edison himself spoke it at another earlier time. If I have spurred men to greater effort, if our work has widened the horizon of men's understanding even a little, and gives a measure of happiness in the world, I am content.